Hello, everyone, and welcome to Hit and Hustle from IrishSportsDaily.com. I'm your host, Greg Flammang, and with me, as always, is Jamie Uyeyama, Mr. Jamie University. It is Tuesday, November 5th. We're going to have a big portal discussion. So many things are happening in the portal right now. Last week, the portal was a bad thing for Notre Dame. I think this week, the portal is going to be a good thing for Notre Dame. It's already shown to be a good thing with the commitment of Jordan Clark. The nickelback out of Arizona State. He committed or announced his commitment to Notre Dame yesterday. He was just on campus. I think that's a good fit for Notre Dame. Exactly what they kind of needed to replace their other grad transfer, Thomas Harper. And I do like Notre Dame adding players into a niche position like this out of the portal. I think you can always get a guy who you like at nickel. Notre Dame knows what they're looking for. They targeted him right away, and they got him in the fold. So we're going to talk about him. We're going to talk about Riley Leonard is going to be on campus. We're going to talk about Beaux Collins is going to be on campus. Josh Kelly is going to be on campus. A lot of things happening there. Jamie, we noticed some people going into the portal just today. Andrew Makoba from Clemson, who's a big time player. We probably going to be an SEC guy, right? Like that's someone that ends up at Georgia or ends up at Alabama, a school like that. So, but there's a lot happening there.
Maybe
Xavier
A&M.
Watts. Maybe A&M. I don't like that.
Hopefully not, but hopefully not.
Hopefully not. But Xavier Watts wins the Bronco Nagurski as the Defensive Player of the Year, and I'm going to talk about that. We're going to. I'm so delighted for him. I truly am. Just like his progression, not just as a former wide receiver, but just the way that he progressed as a safety as well. It's just like you love to see that. So much to talk about today. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. If this is your first time catching our show, please hit the like. Please subscribe to the show. Please hit the notification bell so you know whenever it is we are going live. When you like the show, it just spreads the show out to more people. When you subscribe, obviously, comes you back. You come back, right? You come back for regular shows, and that's what we want to see, and that's what we love to see. I loved Xavier getting the hardware yesterday. A special thing for him, for his family. And you can do a special thing for your family by gifting your dad, your brother, your significant other, whoever it may be, a bamboo dress shirt from ESQ Clothing. There's no better gift for your husband, father, brother, son, whoever it may be than ESQ's bamboo dress shirt. You've seen it on Notre Dame's favorite players, are your favorite Notre Dame players and coaches. It's the world's most comfortable bamboo dress shirt made of sustainable bamboo fibers. The bamboo shirt is naturally odor resistant, wrinkle resistant, even machine washable. Also 3 degrees cooler than cotton, so you can sweat it out watching games the remainder of the season. Get ahead of the holiday season and use ISD 25 to get 25% off your online purchase at esqclothing.com or visit GAW at a Chicago showroom to get your perfect custom fit. Jamie, where do you want to start? We can start portal. We can start Xavier Watts. Where would you like to begin today? What's top of mind for you?
Let's start with Xavier Watts because, I mean, the guy obviously deserves his flowers. Not like we haven't given him his flowers all year, pretty much, and he's deserved it. I think considering how the last season ended. And he ended it very, very strong. I think everyone had hopeful expectations for him, and it was clear in the spring and a fall camp that, yeah, he had really built upon what he did at the end of last year, and it was great to see. But then all of a sudden you got to start playing games, and you got to see where a guy is at, and it's just incredible to see his development, and so much credit, obviously goes to Watts himself for the work that he put in over the years, and also for being a guy who didn't look for the easy way out, because that's what a lot of guys do nowadays, right? And he obviously stuck it out at Notre Dame despite having to switch positions. And even though it wasn't like instant success at that position, he didn't look to get out. He spent the time. And even then there was like the part where they're like, hey, we're short receivers, so can you maybe move back? And he took some, he took reps and was just kind of helping out the offense, but it was like that was not beneficial to him,
No.
doing that to help the team. And it just shows what a kind of guy he is, right? And what he was kind of willing to do. And Chris O'Leary just did a fantastic job with him. And Watts just really, like, I think this was always in him. I mean, I was super high on him as a prospect. And then believe me, when he was like bouncing from positions and all that, I was like, ooh, my grade maybe not looking so great. I gave him a 93 grade coming out. And here I just got from my film lie. I would say this turned out to be pretty good for me. This was what I wrote about his ceiling. He's a multi-sport, basketball and track, and multi-position athlete, which is always a huge plus. This also tells me that he's nowhere close to reaching his potential because he hasn't focused on his future spot. I think he could play in the slot or X position for the Irish if he plays offense. And that's the side of the ball if he's being recruited for. If it doesn't work out there, then they could always give him a shot on defense too. I think he has the potential to develop to be a big play contributor on either side of the ball. Irish fans should be very excited about his versatility, and the staff did a great job identifying some of the potential to create explosive plays. And obviously, he didn't become a receiver, but I highlighted a lot of stuff too about, like, I mean, you could see he found the ball and was productive on defense. It did a really, really great job. But it's different between being a guy in high school when you can kind of be a free safety and sit on it and just kind of explode and just see a quarterback stare down and make plays, and then really like playing within the defense and really kind of shining there. And he absolutely shined. And I couldn't be happier for a guy like that to be like, insane that he didn't get nominated for the Jim Thorpe Award, but won the Defensive Player of the Year. But really, who cares? He's going to be, I mean, I would be shocked if he wasn't an All-American. Absolutely deserved it. And just tremendous to see a guy like that get recognized.
The Thorpe thing, it's a total disgrace. And that's their bad. And you know what? But it doesn't even matter. Like he got this, and he gets to take that trophy home. You showed his dad in the video, like, do we get to keep this? Like, yeah, man, like that's going to your house. That's going to be in your house forever. Defensive Player of the Year in college football. Like, that's awesome. And for Watts too, like when they made the move, it was like, we're going to put him at Rover. It's like, why? Like they didn't have a spot for him. They wanted him to play, and they wanted him to get on the field. When he started playing games in 2021, like late in the year, he didn't know what he was doing. But it was like, I'm just gonna go find the ball. Like his snaps per like tackle rate was off the charts. Like he was always around the ball, and like for me, it's especially like he is without question my favorite player on this team, and it has everything to do with the fact that he's a safety, and I'm a safety, right? And so when he comes in, doesn't know what he's doing, always finds the ball, always has a good attitude about everything. He was not very good in coverage. He didn't understand coverage very well. And then, and it's like I put on Twitter, he went from fun guy to come in and make plays. And then he turned into like a key reserve. Like he would come in and it's like he's making more plays. And I would like little things. And I put it on Twitter all the time, like little breakdowns, like, hey, he's doing these little things that kind of show like he's picking this up. And he's really becoming like an actual safety now. And it's little things that people wouldn't notice, but because I played safety, it's like, hey, like that's really trends well. End of last year, like when he became a starter because Brandon Joseph got hurt, like he just kept trending. And then what did we say? We said it's just the playmaking, it's the plays on the ball, and like you say that like it's just a natural trajectory. Like that doesn't happen. It's like a lot of guys never get there. They never get to that point. It's very difficult, right? You're talking about like the last step of being like a great player. And then here he is, 7 interceptions, like around the ball all the time, team leader, right? Like always dependable. He's not busting out there. And so to see the fact that they moved him, he didn't really know what he was doing, and he just said, I'm gonna be a great player. I'm gonna be a player. And to see it happen, I'm just so like happy for him just to see that, it's great. Like it's great for and I don't even want to like juxtapose it against like people who leave the program, because it just like it doesn't I don't want it to be a negative on anyone else. I only want this to be like a positive thing for him. Like seriously, it's like congratulations to him and the way that he got through everything, because it's hard to do, and it's a hard position to play, and it's a really hard position to be like excellent at.
Excellent, yeah.
Excellent. And so like congrats to him, and I'm glad that you wanted to lead the show with him, because I think he deserves top billing on that. Let's move on to Mike Brown, Jamie, because we got a question about it. Mac G in the chat asked a question I think we've seen a lot, and the kind of the main concern about Mike Brown and the hire that Marcus Freeman made here. He asked, how worried should we be that Freeman keeps hiring guys he worked with at Cincy? What happens when we run out of guys he knows from Cincy?
I don't know. He hires Al Golden. That was a pretty good one.
Is not from Cincinnati.
It's not from Cincinnati. I mean, he was at Cincinnati Bengals, but he certainly wasn't someone that he had worked with before. I don't know. Like I think most of the hires have gone pretty good first of all of the hires from Cincinnati have gone really good. And if that's the kind of worry about like, well, what does he run out? It's like, well, I guess we'll see when that happens. But even like, say, like I mentioned on Power Hour, and I think people knew about it at the time too, Chauncey Stuckey, and it's nothing against Chauncey, like whatever. I like him. I thought, in general, like he's a pretty good coach, just wasn't a great fit and didn't do a good job managing. We don't need to rehash it all. But that was a Tommy Rees directed hire. That was the guy that Tommy wanted. And it's not to say that Marcus didn't want him too, but I think if Marcus had his original kind of choice and he could just pick the guys that he wanted, I think Mike Brown probably would have been at the top of the list. So you can't really see him as like, this is like a fallback guy, or he's just going to Cincy guys or whatever. It's like, no, he's just hiring a guy he knows who's good at his job. And I don't know if anyone listened to Power Hour on Monday at all, but our boss Mike Frank, he spoke to a source, and I know the source that he talked to is a guy who's extremely well respected in college football, and this guy is a very no BS guy. He will tell like it is. If the guy's a crap coach, he's telling you he's a crap coach. Like, and he was very complimentary about Brown in terms of identifying talent, developing talent, a really, really hard worker as a recruiter. I mean, that is just the kind of like extra endorsement that you kind of want to hear about. It's not all caps John Bryce. It's someone it's a coach. It's a coach who is there, who currently coaches in college football at another program. And anyways, Brown did a really, really good job at Cincinnati, specifically with guys that were fast, like freaky athletes that weren't polished guys that he helped become NFL guys. And if I'm looking at that, and I know, and it's unfortunate because these guys are out of the program now, but that's guys like Tobias Merriweather. That's guys like Braylon James. I mean, certainly Jordan Faison, I got to be excited about. Cam Williams is the guy that I'm like, man, I'm excited to see what Mike Brown does with Cam Williams. I'm excited to see what Mike Brown does with Logan Saldate. Like, if they land Chris Mitchell, which I think things are trending in that direction, that's a guy that I would be excited to see get coached by Mike Brown. He's certainly a big time speed guy. I think it's a good hire. I think it's a good hire. And I think people still have like, just PTSD from old BK hires that didn't work out well from Grand Valley State or whatever. But really Cincinnati hire has been great. And I think you kind of have to worry about, when he has to hire someone else for someone else, you worry about that kind of stuff way later on, because you just don't know. You just don't know. It's just like how Dabo was finding out when he lost a bunch of his original guys. And then it was like, well, Dabo's going through it right now. And you know what? You just don't know that about what Freeman's going to be like if he's got to hire guys really that he doesn't have some kind of connection with that he knows about yet. But you never know if someone's going to be like Nick Saban, who always seems the right guy, or if Saban obviously is the kind of master puppeteer that kind of really controls it all too. So you just got to kind of wait and see.
I kind of look at the actions of Fickell as well. Like Fickell moved jobs, and he brought Mike Brown with him, and not just that, he promoted him. He made him passing game coordinator, right? So didn't have to do that.
And associate head coach,
right? Exactly. Like he didn't have to do that. And so I just think, like, if the headline is Marcus Freeman takes Fickell's like passing game coordinator, right? Like I think that'd be a good thing, right? It was pointed out by Michael in the chat, like if Luke Fickell got the job in 2021, he's bringing
he is
with him, right? And a lot of people would have really liked it, right? Like if people wanted Fickell, it was just like, it's not going to work out timing wise because they're in the playoff, right? Like people wanted Fickell to be the coach. He would have been a home run, but they needed continuity. You didn't want the class to fall apart. We don't have to relitigate all that stuff. But so I view it as like, okay, Fickell took the guy with him and then he promoted him. So that's one thing. The second thing is, like, I think that this is very common within college football, right? Like Mike Elko, he wanted to keep the D-line coach from Texas A&M. He lost him. What did he do? He got the D-line coach from Florida, who he worked with previously, right? Like that coaches do this, like that's what they do. And the reason they do it, it's like, hey, if I'm going to go into this, like my job is like on the line here, right? You're going to go with people who you believe in and who you know. And so I don't have a problem with that. The other part is, like, look at Mike Brown. Like, he is a very impressive human being. As far as goes to Liberty, he wants to be a quarterback. I go to Liberty to be a quarterback. Gets to Liberty, there's a junior quarterback. You're not going to get on the field as a quarterback. So what does he do? He goes, plays wide receiver, and becomes all conference. That quarterback then moves on. He becomes the quarterback, and what happens? He becomes all conference. Like, that's so hard. And so, like, I just look at a guy like that. Then he goes on to the NFL. He has a short NFL career, and then he moves right into coaching. Like, to me, that is someone who, like, think of it like Xavier Watts, just someone we just talked about. It's like, oh, I have one avenue closed here. I'm going to open up another avenue for myself. That avenue closed. Okay, now I'm going to open up another avenue for myself, right? Like, that is the type of person that you want in your program, right? It's like no receiver is going to go complaining to Mike Brown. It's like, oh, well, it's not working out for me here. It's like, well, maybe you need to make it work. And I know how that works because I've been in your situation, right? So I think that's a good thing to bring into your program. I don't have a problem with him bringing in someone that he previously knew. I mean, it's not like he knew him. This is like a GA somewhere. Like he has experience being a receiver coach, being a passing game coordinator, being an associate head coach. Like, my main concern is, like, this seems like someone who might be a quick riser, right? So that's something that they want to kind of, like, Freeman's a big continuity guy. If they have a couple good years, then this might be something that they're going to have to look for another wide receiver coach. But that's on down the line. I think it's a good hire. I think everyone should be excited, and I'm excited about it, right? And so we'll see how it goes. The recruiting is the big question, but that remains to be seen. I know Cam Williams was super excited about it, and he was fired up, and he had a previous relationship as well. And so that really, really helps. And speaking of wide receivers, Jamie, you mentioned Chris Mitchell, who was just on campus for Notre Dame, and the vibes are very good coming out of that visit. And we were talking about this too, and I would keep this in mind for kind of everybody who is visiting Notre Dame. Notre Dame has a very good track record of, when they get portal guys to visit, that's usually they're zeroed in on them and they feel really good about landing them. They have a very good track record of getting the guys who visit campus, right? So Chris Mitchell was one of those who was just on campus. I think he is your starting. I think he's a starting field wide receiver. I think he beats out if he was still on the team. I think he would have beat out Rico Flores. We're talking about someone who they threw the ball to him 100 times last year, 100 targets, 64 catches, 3 drops on 100 targets. Jamie, we were talking about that. That's insane.
Yeah,
that's like really good in terms of just like not dropping the ball. Like Beaux Collins last year, like he's another one on campus. Like he had 5 drops on considerably less targets, right? So that just kind of goes to show like a 4% drop rate, that'll work for you. He stretches the field. He's got good size, but he's not like a Miles Boykin type. He's not really even a Tobias type, like with the size like that. Good size. He can. I think he could play anywhere. I like him for the field, and good production. 64 catches, over 1,000 yards, and it to me, this is the type of player that you want to bring into your program as a wide receiver. You talked a little bit about it on Power Hour, Jamie, but what else did you like about Chris Mitchell there?
Yeah, I just think, I mean, first of all, the speed. He runs a reporter 4.4. He ran a sub 11 100 in high school as a high school junior. I like how he was a guy he was at FIU for a reason in terms of like his physical development. He was 140 something pounds when he went to university. So he's put in a lot of work to put on weight, and he gained 15 pounds over the last season. So he's put in a ton of work recently to try to improve his game. And you could see how he took a major jump because of that work. So you already see a guy who's like dedicated to like getting better and putting in the time to do this, to get bigger, to get stronger. And that's made a difference in his game. And he wins. He's, for a guy who's not the biggest guy, he can win contested because he's got great body control. He's got really nice ball skills. He's 4th in PFF's deep ball grade for receivers this past year. I just think he is the kind of guy when and Mike mentioned on Power too, they're losing speed because you lose the guys like or at least the theoretical with Braylon James, right? And Tobias, because he's actually done it on the field too. Well, Mitchell should at least be able to give you what Tobias did in terms of giving you that deep threat, right? So I think that is big. That is big. So if they're able to add him, like you said, I think he was a guy who would have started over Rico Flores at the field. Frankly, he's just faster than him. And
he's just a better wide receiver right now. Like it's not even a slight on Rico. Like it's supposed to be like that.
Yeah. It's just really kind of where he's at. And also too, like, I think unfortunately, as we talk about like, the land of 1,000 slots, I think Rico's best position is probably in the slot. So he should probably find a place that he can go and play the slot. Right. So I do think that he's a fit as a field receiver. And it kind of gives you a buffer too, as someone who's like a vet, another vet who can come in, and that's a guy who can help hopefully mentor a guy like Cam Williams.
Yeah.
Because they're going to have, obviously Williams, I would say overall has like better overall traits than Mitchell, but similar kind of, games, I think is what you're going to kind of look for, is just maybe like a Williams would be a heightened version of that later on. That's a perfect guy to learn from. It's a perfect guy to learn from. So for Saldate to learn from too. So as a small ball guy who can play a little bit bigger too. So I think it would be a great pickup for Notre Dame.
And it's good because it's that combination of size and the speed as well. And like he can stretch the field, right? Like he can get out there and he can threaten teams that way. Like I said, in the field, he has experience kind of running all kind of routes. And so it just becomes like, okay, like people lament like, oh, like Notre Dame doesn't run slants. It's like, well, slant to the field is kind of like, it's a long throw. You need a strong wide receiver out there because they're going to get hit. There's going to be a collision, right? You got to believe in those hands. You got to believe in that body control, like you talked about. Like you got to be able to believe that guy's going to protect the ball against a closing corner. And so Mitchell has that, right? He has the ability to do that. He shows that on tape. Another receiver who's on I think he's going to be on a visit today is Josh Kelly from Washington State. Tons of that stuff. I mean, just a super savvy wide receiver, like good shakes, not the biggest size, but like knows how to get open, knows how to use his hands in tight spaces, knows how to catch the ball in tight spaces. Like these are just like very good wide receivers, right? Like types of guys that it's like, this is what you want, like Greathouse and Rico Flores to be eventually. Like that's what kind of they are. So the big time wide receiver, Notre Dame can land those guys. Like the Josh Kelly one is to me like even more so than Beaux Collins. Like Beaux Collins is I think you guys talked about it yesterday on Power Hour. It's like kind of a Javon McKinley type.
Yeah.
Which is good. Like they need, by the way, it's not a,
I mean, you take it for sure at RP. Yeah.
100%. Right. And if they took, and before we get the question, like Notre Dame will take all three of those guys. They're all visiting for a reason. Right. And by the way, Riley Leonard's also going to be on campus very soon as well. That's probably no coincidence that he's going to be on campus when those guys are on campus. Look, they're lining it up. And I think that the way that they've set this up, it's like, hey, they had a need for wide receiver, like a desperate need for wide receiver. You want to get your quarterback locked up. You want to get those wide receivers on board at the same time. Like you're going to be our crew. And so it looks like Rob has some breaking news on Marist Liufau. That might have hit Twitter just now that Marist has opted out and will enter the NFL draft. Not surprising. Hadn't he? He put it out on Twitter.
ISD subscribers probably already knew because Matt had mentioned that was likely the case. And you know what? It totally makes sense for him because he's a guy who's dealt with a lot of injuries, and not just like the broken leg. Like he's played beat up a lot over the last 2 years. So man, go. And he's already got his invite to the Senior Bowl. Tremendous invite for him.
To the Senior Bowl.
That's
got
great.
His degree.
Got his degree. Great year. You can't hate on a guy who's already got his degree and is already on that thing. Plus, I think the added benefit of it is Notre Dame, as much as you want to win this game, and all these things that are involved in it, Notre Dame has to get ready. This has to be like a stepping stone to the Texas A&M game, really.
Yeah.
In many senses, right? And it's a perfect chance for I think you could see like Jack Kaiser's probably gonna I imagine he's playing in this game. But Jack Kaiser's gonna get opportunity. Jalen Sneed at the very least will get more run on third down and probably a little bit of run in the base defense too. At least a chance to compete for it right now. But that also gives the chance for Drake Bowen to compete, for Jaden Osbury to compete. And so all of these guys, and really it should be treated like a spring ball because these are practices right now. These guys all gotta compete, right? And so everyone wants Jalen Sneed to do it. I mean, he's had more opportunities than Bowen and Osbury. He's been on campus a lot longer. So Sneed, you want to see him go and take it, but he's got to take it. He's got to go and take it. And frankly, he has not looked good as a linebacker when he's in. He's a very see ball, get ball guy. So here's an opportunity to show he's more than that. That would be exciting, but it could be also be it's also extremely exciting if it's like, Drake Bowen showcase or an
Yeah.
Osbury showcase, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot
Preston
of that.
Zinter.
Preston Zinter. There's also a lot of like Boubacar Traore. Like he's going to get in a third down in this game, So that's one less pass rusher there. So that's one other guy there. So that I think is all good for Notre Dame in terms of looking to the future.
Yeah. Greg Wasserman put on in the chat, Notre Dame needs to hit the D-line hard, and that doesn't appear to be happening. Christian had an update on the board about RJ Oben. Watch this space is what I would say to that. Notre Dame is going to hit this position. And I would look for something on RJ Oben, some news on him, not necessarily like, commitment or anything, but just watch this space is what I would say to that. And yes, like Jamie, 100%, like this game, especially given the fact that like Oregon State's going to have a lot of defections, they need to develop the team. They need to get the team ready to play. And guys like that are key, key to that. Even at like the tackle positions, like the offensive line, like Ashton Craig and Billy Schrouth, right? Like those guys, let's get this ready to go. Emil Wagner, could he start at tackle in this game if Fisher and or Alt opt out of the game? What could he do, right? So this is all it all kind of blends to that. And there was a comment in the chat. I don't really want to go too far back to find it. It was from Abe Froman, though, the Sausage King of Chicago, talking about Notre Dame could, come out of the portal with an upgrade at the wide receiver position. And yeah, it could.
I think that is definitely going to happen.
I mean, look, if you land Chris Mitchell and just Josh Kelly, you have
it's already an upgrade.
It's already right there.
Yeah.
If they land Beaux Collins, like it's a no-brainer, just to complete. Like I couldn't even have speculated that they would have three that are that good. I think Beaux Collins is going to be a little bit more difficult, and I don't really know where Josh Kelly kind of stands on that, right? And so, but I just think like if it's those three guys, 100%, they have upgraded. Beaux Collins is the bigger guy, like 6'3", 200. I could see him being a boundary. He played kind of both boundary and field at Clemson. Boy, Jamie, I was watching that Clemson offense yesterday. I mean,
it's horrible.
God, it's so bad. And by the way, and G Bronx put up Riley Leonard. The Duke's offense is another one where it's like my biggest concerns. I watched 2 full games, Jamie. They didn't throw a post. Not only did they not throw a post, I don't know that they ran a post. Like I was like, man, it's not good. It's gosh, no, I was just like, man, it's I don't know how Riley Leonard can actually showcase what his abilities are.
I think one of the things people don't take into account is that Duke's O-line was bad.
50% pressure rate.
Yeah.
That's
so
atrocious.
Yeah. It's any team that had a legit pass rush was like 50% pressure rate against them. And for those that don't know, that's horrible. Like 40%, if that is not good, right? Like if you're giving up 40%, like 30% is about average or whatever, right? But like 40, like 50% is like, and go back and whatever. There's a bunch of GIFs that I have that were kind of showing how Notre Dame was able to contain Riley Leonard and shut him down in that game. And man, he had like no, he had nothing there. I just want to mention, because Greg Wasserman keeps on saying here that Notre Dame should go after like every other big guy. And I mean, I don't know, man. I think you're kind of way off base. You're just saying like they got to get Walter Nolan. They're not going to get Walter Nolan. And Walter Nolan's going to go to somewhere for a year. He's going to get a big check. And that's about it. That's about it. And I mean, would be great if they could get Walter Nolan, but that's not happening. And would be great if they get Andrew Makuba. Probably not going to happen. I don't. Anyone who would say that you don't want to take Riley Mills and Howard Cross back, I mean, could question. Maybe you don't really know that much about football if that's the case.
If Riley Mills went into the portal, that would be an earthquake for college football teams.
He would be a top 3 D tackle in the portal right now.
Yes.
Same with Howard Cross.
Yes.
So I don't know what, like, people just, no one, I guess people just always see the other shinier toy up there. And, you know, you can always get some guys. It's just like if Jordan Addison's available, yeah, I love to get him, sure. But there's very few times that a Jordan Addison type is available. Just like how it's the same thing of everyone wants to get a better quarterback. Everyone wants to think, well, Drake May is not in the portal. You know what I mean? So it's like everyone wanted Drake May in the portal, but he's not, right? It's just like it doesn't. Everyone who people think you get in the portal, it's like someone asked, and I don't want to dismiss, someone asked about the offensive tackles and if there's an offensive tackle.
Oh, I haven't put it up because I was going to go to that.
Yeah. So I haven't seen anyone in the portal that has stood out to me that I've watched. To be fair, I definitely have not watched any of the small school guys. So I have no take on them. And they might be guys that are worth looking at. But, I mean, there's definitely not a proven guy there because look at it. Look at, like, Blake Fisher, who, put it this way, if Blake Fisher was not going to the draft and he said, I'm going in the portal, he would be the number 1 guy with a bullet. Like, he would, like, here's him, everybody else is below here. Because guys who are normally really NFL type guys in at the offensive tackle position, they're not grad transfers. You know, they're going to the league, right? So that's why it's really hard. Where a defensive end, it's a little bit different because you can find guys that are like good guys that are there's almost, I don't want to say there's too many edge rushers, but there's more edge rushers that you can find. And maybe guys that maybe they haven't put it all together, like how JJB didn't put it all together until he was at Notre Dame. But you can find more of those types there. Offensive tackle, it's just really, really hard. Where, say, like a couple years ago, Bama got Tyler Steen from Vanderbilt, right? And he ended up being like a 3rd round pick, good player for them. But that is a rarity to get someone like that. It's a rarity to get someone like that. And, Bama got him. So it's like one of those things. It's like offensive tackle, just one of those things you don't want to have to be looking for it in the portal. Unfortunately, Notre Dame could probably use at least someone to compete there. But really kind of what you're hoping for is that they have guys within the roster who are ready to take that next step. And, I mean, we'll kind of see a little bit in this bowl game probably.
Yeah. What I would say is it's extremely rare for 2 tackle positions, especially left tackle at Notre Dame, to be available. And I wouldn't be shocked if just a guy you wouldn't even think about. He just like enters the portal and then is immediately linked to Notre Dame. Like that, I think that would have to be the situation to find someone who it's like it's not someone in the portal right now. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like it's not someone who just like goes in and it's no big deal. Like it's gonna be. I couldn't even think of a name. Honestly, I couldn't because I don't know enough about tackles or who could ever be like considering it. I'm just saying like Notre Dame's offensive tackle position does not just come open like this. And so I could see someone who it's like, and look at Riley Leonard, not a grad transfer, Beaux Collins, not a grad transfer. Some of these guys, they're not grad transfers and they're linked to Notre Dame. You know, like everyone's been talking about like Notre Dame needs to like relax the admissions and all that stuff. That appears to be happening, right? Like it appears to be happening, right? So I think that I think that's something to think about, and that's the way that it's going to happen for offensive tackles. Someone will just come in and be like, whoa, like that's a big deal.
Yeah.
They'll be immediately linked to Notre Dame. Christian or Matt will have some report like, hey, like Notre Dame's going to be involved. And then that's how it's going to go.
I would say too, the one thing is that today is a perfect example, right? Where everyone's like, oh, everyone's going to rush in on Monday. It doesn't always work like that.
Right.
So like Makuba today was like, whoa,
Yeah.
right? Like, you know, everyone saw Kyle McCord went in right away and people were like, whoa, you know, I didn't expect Kyle McCord to be in there.
Right.
And then they thought, oh, this is all the things. But there's guys who kind of sneak in. I mean, Makuba, that was certainly not a guy, and who knows what has caused that. But if you saw, if all of a sudden Makuba, if you see like crystal ball to Georgia or something like that, it was just like, well, that, you know, that's a done deal or whatever. There's could be a ton of stuff like that. Also remember that even though there's this now, and it could be like, you know, people doing it now, also could be a rush after the bowl games. Right. So that is something else to look at. But in saying that, it's almost, it's exactly how Greg kind of put it. It's got to kind of like happen how Greg laid it out, because there are just not many guys out there, and it's really got to be people kind of like pushing them to kind of go in the portal.
Yeah.
And I'm not even talking about other schools, but it's also sometimes it's, you know, their own family, just maybe trainers, maybe it's just like, the other thing is there's going to be like there's still coaching movement, assistant coaches moving and guys moving and stuff. And that causes people to go in the portal. So still a lot of time here to kind of get things kind of worked out. But I would say that it's pretty nice to see that Notre Dame is already kind of ahead of the game in terms of portal stuff and getting some. I mean, I think if last week there was obviously total hyperbole from some people in terms of like, this is just a disaster, a catastrophe in terms of what was going on in receiver. And then Matt said it on the side, and I said it on the side too. It's like, wait a minute and just see. And now you're kind of see people are kind of calming down a bit, because you're like, oh, they're actually on it. But if there wasn't stuff like this week, I would be understandable if people were like, man, I'm worried still. And maybe there's, you know, and I don't even care if people are still worried. That's just, they're, you know, be worried how much you want. But, you know, and you still got to get them. You still got to land all these guys and all that too. But they're attacking it the right way. And that's a good thing.
Matt McCarthy says that Chris O'Leary recently followed Dylan Thieneman, the stud freshman safety from Purdue. He hasn't entered a portal, but it's interesting. We could be monitoring. Let's monitor that, right? Matt McCarthy, you know what? If it happens, if they get on him, come back here. We'll give you full credit for noticing that. I want to talk about Riley Leonard, who I've watched a good amount of tape on him, and he's going to be visiting. I think he's starting tomorrow and Thursday. You know, some speculation that he wants to, you know, there's going to be some sort of announcement, some sort of, video made. And if you want to make a video, then you should head over to VSR Media. First of all, it's founded by Notre Dame football pregame host and Emmy Award-winning anchor Vahid Sadrazadeh. I hope Riley Leonard's, if he's making a video, I hope he goes to VSR and Vahid, because VSR Media provides professional and cinematic video and photo. Whether you're looking for collegiate or pro-level highlight reel, have a personal story to tell, or aiming to diversify and grow your business, VSR Media specializes in short and long-form video storytelling, social media management, a website design. VSR Media also captures professional headshot, senior and sports photos. So, like, if you're a quarterback who you're changing schools and you want to tell a bit of a story about that, you head over to VSR Media. And if Riley Leonard is so inclined, he can contact them at vsrmediacompany.com, and he can mention Irish Sports Daily to receive 20% off his project there. Visit them online or give them a call at 574-800-9106. Riley Leonard, the Duke offense, Jamie, I don't like. I could see how he wants to get out. Like, I put it on the board earlier this week. Like, we look at Notre Dame's offense via the lens of like top teams in college football, and what we want the offense to kind of look like, or what it could look like, right? Improvements they need to make. It's far and away a superior offense. Like, people say, like, why would a quarterback want to play Notre Dame's offense? Well, when you watch Duke's offense, you kind of get the idea. It's like, oh, I would absolutely love to play for Notre Dame's offense over this one, because it's just they're not really stretching the field at all. He's not getting the chance to make a bunch of big time throws. Everything's underneath. Like against Clemson this year, they threw 2 passes over 20 yards. His average depth of target was 5.4 yards. Like, everything's underneath, a ton of screens. It's just he's not able to showcase himself as a passer. And that's kind of my biggest question about him, is like, how good is he really throwing the ball down the field? Because we just haven't seen it. Like, that just doesn't show up on tape very much. They throw a lot of go balls. They don't throw a lot of posts. They don't use this is stunning. Like, their play action rate against a team like Clemson, or a team like the Boston College game last year, it was under 10%. It's like unbelievable. It's like you're a running team and you're not doing that stuff. There is some RPO things that they had him doing, which he looks pretty good there. So people say he is an elite athlete. I mean, he really is. I mean, we're talking about like running away from teams like Clemson, like getting in the open field and absolutely just running away from them. You mentioned on Power Hour yesterday, he short arms some throws. He tries to guide the ball sometimes. Like, he tries to actually, like, just like, how it is. Like, you're throwing from second to first, and it's like you just want to kind of guide it in there, and he doesn't sling it in there at times. But he throws, like, he'll throw he'll throw the out to the field when he's on the opposite hash. Like, that is in the offense. He has very good timing when he throws short passes. He understands zone concepts of when players are going to come open against zone. I saw him change a play, Jamie, where he identified man complete, and you could tell. And not only did he change the play, he didn't look to the sideline. He changed it on his own, moved the back over, got the back out in the flat against a linebacker, and it was like a huge gain. It was like a 15-yard gain. It's like, that's a really good job, right? Like, I've been able to identify coverage, holds the safety. Even when throwing short, he holds the safety, right? I think he has a very good arm. He's just an absolute, like, he changes the way defenses have to play their running game, because he can just pull it and run. You mentioned yesterday, there's a lot of designed run stuff with him, where it's like he's got like a 50-yard touchdown run against Clemson on quarterback counter, basically, like things that we saw Tyler Buckner do. Like, he's breaking a tackle, like he's hitting the backfield for like a 3-yard loss, breaks the tackle, and then he goes 50 yards to the house. Like, that's special, right? Like, that's just special athleticism. He's not, Drake May, right? He's not that guy, but man, he's a really good quarterback. It's like, maybe people don't like, they want like more of like a pure passer, like Hartman was. But to me, this is a much better fit for Notre Dame's offense. What do you think?
I mean, I don't even think it's pure passer. I think they want Drake May. Everybody wants or Trevor Lawrence. They want Caleb Williams. They want that guy who they can say, "Oh man, Notre Dame got this guy. Man, get ready, national championship." That's what people care about. That's what they want. They're thinking about all of that kind of thing. And And that's really what people were kind of hoping for with Hartman, even though it was unrealistic expectations to think that it was going to be, like that for him. It's not to say that he couldn't have been better than he was this year, but to say that he was going to elevate everything to make it to the point, or all of a sudden he was going to be this guy that he wasn't, it was probably like, it could have happened, but it wasn't like super, super likely. And I think with Leonard, to me, I think in terms of just the type of player he is, I think there is a lot of similarities to him and Ian Book, in a lot of ways. And again, that's not something that's like super exciting to a lot of people. Well, Ian Book won a lot of games at Notre Dame. Like he was a pretty good quarterback, but really Leonard is a more talented version of that, which really Leonard is in, and it's another thing we mentioned on Power, that he is more of a Desmond Ridder type, right? So at Cincinnati, Gino Guidugli coached at Cincinnati. So that is kind of the way I'd look at it. Is I think you have a guy who has the potential to be a Desmond Ridder type. And the thing with Ridder was he always had these traits where you're like, man, this guy's a really good athlete. He's a really good runner. He could be super dangerous as a dual threat. But he was like a one read guy. And it was like, that read's not there. He's going. And there was like a progression with him as a player, and you really saw it take off as a senior. And that's the other thing why it's not really fair to kind of compare Leonard and Hartman too. Leonard is a guy who started about, less than 20 games in his career, or around 20, I believe, around 20 games. And might actually be right on 20. And Hartman started like 50 something, like he was a much more of like the guy that he was already. And he was in a 6th year. He was an adult. And Leonard is a 3rd year guy who started less games, also got hurt this year, and has more room to grow. Plus, he's bigger and a better athlete and all that kind of stuff too. So, and played with his skill talent around him and system in terms of friendliness for what it could do for the stats and stuff too. Also much worse at Duke. I don't think people really realize kind of what Duke's talent level was. Like you would trade everybody on Notre Dame, the offense, for what you had on Duke. You just would.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I just think that they don't. And that's the other thing that people don't realize too, is I see like people like, there's always the one dude in here who's always arguing against why anyone to pick Notre Dame. Like, I don't know why you always listen to the show, but you're here. So thanks for the view, I guess. But like, people pick Notre Dame, a lot of these guys, because Notre Dame is a better situation. And it is a much better situation in a lot of ways. And also too, like, everybody also has a belief that they come there and that they're going to come in and elevate things too. Yeah. Because they should have that belief, right? So I think that's something that Leonard has, and it's why Leonard's like, well, if these receivers come too, then we're going to do it. And that's part of the game now, right? Is like getting all these guys together and thinking what you can do. And the other thing is like, I don't know, but like Jaden Greathouse might just have a monster breakout year next year and become like a star. Like that is, I don't think, out of the question. Like, I think we saw even just what he flashed at the end of the year. You're like, oh, this dude healthy again. If this guy was healthy all year, you might have seen a lot more. I mean, he would have put up better numbers than Rico if he was healthy all year, right? Because he's just a little bit more explosive, really, right? And he's bigger too. But and there's also Jaden Thomas. So who still was hurt like basically the whole year, who's going to get better, and Faison's going to get better. And I mean, we don't know about KK Smith, but you got all these young freshmen, and you're adding, hopefully these other guys too. That's like a pretty attractive thing, and it's also going to be way better than what Leonard had to work with. And even with a new line, new tackles and all that kind of stuff, it's still going to be a better line than Duke's last year. It is. So I think I'm excited about if Notre Dame lands Riley Leonard, because I think he has room to continue to grow and get better. And I also think too, the dynamic of him as an actual dual threat that you can call design runs for, and that, it's something you brought up a bunch during the season, Greg, of how many times just on third downs, guess what? Your OC, he makes a bad call, or not a bad call, but the wrong call. He thought it was going to be something and whatever, and your quarterback bails you out because he can just improvise and make that play. And Hartman really was not that capable of doing that, because he's a pocket guy who kind of stays in the pocket and maybe stays in too long. He'll run if it's obvious, but that's about it. Leonard is a guy that he can make a guy miss, shake off the tackle, and then all of a sudden take it for 20 yards. So your bad play call becomes really good. It's the, no, yes, three-pointer in basketball, right? It's like that kind of thing. And it's just nice to have a quarterback that can do that.
Oh, it's like, okay, we talked about, like, sometimes Parker would guess wrong. It's like we're calling a man beater against zone, or we're calling a zone beater against man. It's like with Hartman, it's a dead play. The head goes down, he can't scramble for it, and he doesn't get out of the pocket, and Notre Dame loses, and they got a punt, right? Riley Leonard, like, there are so many times on the tape where it's like, I don't like this play. This is a bad call. Let's go. Like, get down and let's go. And you're gaining 10, and you're gaining 12, and you're gaining 13 yards, right? Like, and we were talking about this over the weekend. Like look at, like, people talk about Tommy Rees, right, and how great he did against Georgia, and he did a great job, right? And he did all the things that Tommy Rees does, right? Good plays in situations, right? He's got winners called up, but there are so many times. Milroe ran for 42 first downs this year. 42 first downs, right? Like, that is so important in the college game. And Coach C asked a question about when we're talking about quarterback styles. The question is, does anyone really know what style offense Notre Dame wants to run? Jared Parker was inconsistent and did not show cohesion in game plans. And I think that Notre Dame, actually, I'll just leave it up. I think that Notre Dame wants to be physical, period. They want to be a physical team. And that was the thing that did not fit with Hartman. Hartman is not a physical player, right? He just isn't. And Riley Leonard absolutely is. And he brings just an aura of physicality to the position where every defender has to be aware of him running the ball, right? And, like, you can be down on offense. You could be down and out. We talked about it in the last show. Like Duke was against Notre Dame. They didn't have anything going. What did they do? They ran Leonard, and that got them going. It ultimately led to them taking the lead. And that's how they almost won the game against Notre Dame, right? Like, that sort of thing. I think Notre Dame wants that. I think Notre Dame wants that sort of player, that sort of physicality in it. He ran, like, their offense, like a lot of their short game stuff, like Notre Dame did very similar, right? He's very used to that, like a lot of back out of the backfield, right? A lot of things based off of zone read. A lot of, like, they run those little tunnel screen type things. Like Wake Forest was much more down the field, right? Like, everything's happening down the field. He's looking downfield all the time. Like, they're just completely different offenses. And I think Riley Leonard ran a very similar offense in terms of style at Duke than they are at Notre Dame. Notre Dame is a much better team. Like, Duke never ran. I never saw Duke run 4 verts. Like, a lot of the switch route stuff that we saw against NC State that worked really well with the tight ends. Duke doesn't do that stuff. They're not trying to get the ball down the field. They are trying to basically move the sticks on pass plays. Notre Dame will try to push the ball, right? And so, like a lot of those post routes, like a lot of the things out of trips where they hit Faison again for the touchdown against Louisville, when they hit Tobias Merriweather on the post against with the same route concept. I think it was against Pitt when they hit Tobias Merriweather, slot fade stuff. It's just like Duke's not doing those types of things, right? And so it's like that's where the style fit, I think, is better for Leonard than it was Hartman. Ironically, like Hartman needed a receiving core if you had Chris Mitchell and if you had Josh Kelly and if you possibly had like Beaux Collins, right? Like that. If Notre Dame had that, then I think Sam Hartman, that's a much more conducive situation for him. And he's probably a little frustrated with those guys, walking around campus. And Sam Hartman just saw his entire receiving core basically enter the portal, with the exception of some other ones. So that's kind of where I'm at with that. Gosh, what a loaded show, Jamie. We didn't even get to the fact that Tyler Buckner is coming back to Notre Dame as a lacrosse player. What a story there. Good for him. It's awesome to see his sister is on campus. She's a soccer player at Notre Dame. I believe he has a girlfriend who's on Notre Dame's campus as well. So look, I'm glad that he's back. Patrick Carter was always asking the question, what if Sam Hartman was throwing to Kyle Hamilton? I mean, it would be great, right? It would be awesome if that was happening. But it's just like Tyler Buckner coming back to Notre Dame. Very cool to see. It's awesome that he's going to do that. Jamie, I think we can end it there. I think that's a good show.
I just want to hit on one thing before we go.
One more thing for Jamie.
One thing, because I know we mentioned him, but we didn't really get into just Jordan Clark real quick because we didn't get a chance to talk about him. And so he's the nickelback that Notre Dame just landed a commitment from Arizona State. He's the son of Ryan Clark, who people will know from ESPN, and he was a former Pittsburgh Steeler. Beloved Pittsburgh Steeler. Super physical, says some of like the best highlight hits you've ever seen in your life. Played on those great defenses for many, many years. I really, really like the fit for Jordan Clark at Notre Dame. He was a captain at Arizona State. It was a really bad situation with them the last couple years. Obviously, with all the Herm Edwards stuff and with all the other things that were going on, like in terms of they're basically rebuilding the entire program. They had one of the worst rosters in the Power Five this year because of all the guys that they lost over time. And they had just a ton of injuries too. So they were in a really, really bad spot. He played injured this year too. And they played in a different scheme where he played a lot more zone. He's going to play a lot more man. He's a very similar player to Thomas Harper. And he did really, really well playing man coverage in 2022 when they played more man in a more pro style defense where Donnie Henderson, the former NFL defensive coordinator, was their DC. He allowed 40% completions, cover 0, cover 1. So it's 23rd in FBS for minimum 100 snaps. And then he allowed just 41.9 NFL quarterback rating with targeted man coverage in 22. And that was 13th best among cornerbacks with 100 snaps or less. And was good in the slot, right? And obviously that's where the nickel plays. I think he's a physical, aggressive guy. Obviously he's got to come in, compete and win the job, but I think he's a good culture fit, a good scheme fit for what Notre Dame's going to do. And I think that was just a really tidy bit of business to get that guy in the fold and kind of answer a need there. And then you're a lot less worried about, that having to, what if you got to move like Mickey there? And what if Micah Bell's not ready and all that? And maybe Micah Bell is ready and that's his job and whatever. And that's great. But now you have a guy who can play there and help you and play it like a pretty high level within that scheme too. And you know what? It's as other guys mentioned too. Ike Taylor's son's coming. Maybe Jerome Bettis' son might come too. It's going to be a whole Steeler party. So
it's going to be a whole Steeler party. That's just great. Look, Notre Dame obviously knows what they're looking for out of the slot, right? In their nickel player, and they targeted it with Thomas Harper. I think he was a very good player for Notre Dame this year. That was a big success. And I think they know what they're looking for. And I think they found it in Jordan Clark. And I think that they targeted him right away and they made it happen. And that's great. And I think that everyone kind of understands, like, okay, this is the role. This is what we want to get out of the position. And it's going to fit really, really well. So that'll do it for today. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. If this is your first time, please hit the like, please subscribe, please hit the notification bell. So you know whatever it is we're going live, you want to hit the notification bell because this is the type of year where we could be going live anytime, like a big show, big commitments, something happens, big news. We could just go live in like an hour, right? Like something happens. Oh, we got to go live 30 minutes later. We're recording the show. So you're going to want to do that. Thank you, everybody. Short of news, we'll be back for our regular show on Thursday, talking about more of the same. Maybe we can get into a mailbag. We'll see if there's not as much news as there has been. So have a good one, everybody. We'll talk to you soon. Keep hitting and hustling.